Hey everyone, in today's chess video, I'll be showing you one of my favorite systems as well that I've used against many top tier players and both drawn and won with them and helped me preserve my win to lose ratio at the highest levels. Alright, let's get straight into it. Alright, so as you guys can see on the right side of the board, one of my favorite systems to play as white is the Colle Zukertort system. Now what is the Colle Zukertort system? Well, the Colle Zukertort system is a variation of the Colle system that you can play that has netted me a lot of success in the more recent years as I was climbing to get my National Master title. So how do you play this opening? Well, as you guys know from my last video that I showed you guys, systems are very strong type of beginning setups as you can really disregard what your opponent does and really just focus on what your own plan is, especially if your opponent is unaware and hasn't seen your opening before. So this is a d4 opening, and unlike most d4 openings where you might be thinking, well, this is a pretty boring opening, there's not much to do, just going to play a very long positional game, the Colle Zukertort is actually very strong because not only is it positional, but it can transpose to a mighty attack extremely quickly. So it begins with pawn d4, pawn d5. And by the way, on the right side, as you guys can see on the screen, that's the basic setup we are going to go for. And it really doesn't matter if your opponent plays d5, c5, e6, knight f6. It really doesn't matter because basically you're going to get the same setup regardless. And by the way, this is just part one, so we'll be going through some tricky variations, just like in my Philidor series, about what to do against certain things. And all of these things are things that I learned myself through my own experiences playing this opening. So after pawn d5, you can play knight f3. Again, it doesn't really matter what your opponent plays. Let's say knight to f6, pawn e3. Let's say our opponent copies, pawn e6. We play bishop d7. Let's say our opponent plays bishop e7. This is one of the main moves. And now in this point, we can just play knight bd2, trying to stop our opponent from playing knight to e4. Let's say our opponent castles here. And now we're going to put the pawn to b3. Now, as you guys have seen in my last video, this is called the Colle Zukertort system, and the main difference between this system and the London system where we put the bishop on f4 is, well, we have the bishop here instead of here. And what's the idea? Well, I want you guys to think about it real quickly. What is the point of having the bishop on b2? Well, let's say our opponent plays pawn c5, getting some counterplay in the center, and we get this bishop b2 move. Well, what's the point of this? What is the idea? Well, as you guys can see, both of my bishops are aiming at the king's side, right? And my knights have potential to hop into our opponent's camp. As you guys can see, there might be some tactics in the future where we can capture here and maybe take this knight over here. And so the point of this opening is all our pieces are aiming at the opponent's king's side, which means it's going to be very easy for us to attack our opponent. And this is the strength of this opening. We have a basic setup, and now I'm going to be showing you guys the basic middle game plan. So let's say our opponent plays pawn b6, and now we're going to castle. And after castling bishop b7, let's say knight to e5. Again, your opponent can't really play anything. If they play pawn c6, this doesn't change our threats. If he plays knight c6, that doesn't really change anything. Knight bd7, it doesn't matter. Bishop d6, no difference. Rook e8, it really doesn't matter what they do. That's the strength of the system. And after we play knight e5, let's say our opponent plays knight bd7, and now we get this f4 move in. And now you can see how strong our knight is in the center. If they ever decide to capture us, this is only going to be better for us because, as you guys can see, guess what? Our pieces are much more open. It's a lot easier for us to attack our opponent. So obviously it's not good for our opponent. Also, if you really want, you can play the positional way and capture this way instead. Both ways are very good, and I've played both ways in the past before. I just like taking with the f-pawn more because it allows my attack to be a lot stronger. So after this, let's say your opponent plays queen c7. Again, it doesn't matter even if they played rook c8. And now you have so many different things that you guys can do. And it's really up to you guys and up to what you guys think is the best move to play here. You can play rook f3 if you want to do like a rook lift. You guys have seen those amazing chess videos from other chess players before, in which you just bring the rook up and over. You can bring the queen, which is my favorite, to bring the queen over to h3. That's my favorite thing to do. Or even if you really want to, you can bring both knights here. And if you really are a very risky player, you can play pawn g4. I played this once against a FIDE master before, and it was very strong. So what is the main idea here? Let me show you what could happen. And it's actually happened in a Grandmaster game before. Somebody didn't notice. And let's say we play like queen over here, and let's say our opponent plays like rook c8, and we're gonna sneak our queen over to h3. And then let's say our opponent plays a6, trying to begin a queenside attack in this position. There's actually a tactic here that helps us win, well, more than a pawn actually. It can help us win a pawn, a piece, or even can help us checkmate our opponent. So I want you guys to pause the video and think to yourself, what do you think is the best move in this position for white, and how can we take advantage of a black's lack of, well, development, well, not lack of development, but lack of a good position here. And in this position, it's already completely winning for white. There are technically a couple of very strong moves here. That's how strong this system is. And another thing that I really like about this position, by the way, as you guys are thinking about tactics, is how black is really unaware. It looks like black's in a fine position. I mean, if you played the setup against any other queen's pawn opening, that's completely fine because it's not like white's going to like checkmate you in a couple of moves. It looks like black's just going to set up b5, get c4 and get a massive queenside attack. But in this position, it's not like that. His sense of security is going to be his actual downfall. So hopefully you guys can find what the best move is in this position. And this is one of my favorite tactics, as it's very surprising. It's a remove the defender of the defender tactic, and then you remove the defender. So as you guys can see in this position, you guys were probably thinking, oh, we have some checkmating ideas over here on h7, but the problem is we have to get rid of this knight. So if you thought of pawn g4, well, that's a good idea, and it is possible in some variations, just not in this variation over here. So we're not going to do that over here. So we might be thinking, what about knight takes d7 instead? Well, knight takes d7 is a pretty strong move. And that's the point of this idea here. After knight takes d7, well, obviously opponent's not going to be a silly person and just take on d7 back with the knight, because then we can checkmate on h7. But after we take here, he might think he's very smart and decide to capture back with the queen. And capturing back with the queen is definitely better, but then you can see the power of the two bishops over here. You're like, wait a second, I can see that I can capture here, and so we can just capture this pawn here. And here we win more than a pawn actually, if our opponent wants to protect against a checkmate. But if they're silly and just take back the pawn, take the knight, they capture back, and that's checkmate on h7. The best they can do is probably after we capture on c5, maybe play something like pawn g6, and then we can take on b6, win a pawn here, even if they get this pawn back, and our attack is as strong as ever because look at how strong this amazing bishop is on this long diagonal. So that's the strength of the Colle system over here. As you guys can see, we're just going to get this setup. It really doesn't matter what our opponent does. We're going to get this amazing setup and we're going to have a good time. So, I know today's video is just the bare bones of what this opening can entail and help you guys do in your own chess games, but in the future videos, I'll be showing you guys all the different variations that I've learned myself as I was playing through my experiences, and we'll go through step by step the different variations you can play against. And good thing for you guys, unlike the Philidor, there really are no there are no scary variations your opponents can go for that can ruin your day and make your position very sad. Instead, we have these variations I call annoying variations, in which you don't get to really play a Colle Zukertort setup anymore, but because your opponent is playing subpar moves, you get to play other openings that are similar to the Colle Zukertort and basically give you a pretty big advantage, so it's a win-win for you regardless. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's chess games. If you guys did, make sure to press that like and subscribe button, as that will help my channel grow. And if you guys have any questions, make sure to tell me in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to answer them by the next video. Alright, have a nice day everybody.